Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. In this moving and deeply personal feature documentary film, a family of theater makers on a tiny archipelago of Faroe Islands attempts to stage Shakespeare's King Lear, casting the mother, celebrated theater actress Birita Mohr, who is living with Alzheimer's, in the lead role, and her son, Búi Dam, is the theater director that leads this project. This is a beautiful film. It is about as intimate a film as you'll probably ever watch in terms of the interaction between the family and Birita, and so much more about this very poignant film. Joining us today is the director of Birita, Búi Dam. Búi, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, and first, my congratulations on this film for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the sensitive nature of this project, the entire idea of this endeavor. I thought it was handled beautifully. I want to just sort of get this out up front because a lot of people who might look at the description might wonder about the sort of the dynamic different relationship to doing something like this, the questions that come along with it. And again, I think you handled this beautifully, not only in the telling of the story, but in the on the ground, real time concerns that you and your family and others had about doing this. So let's start by talking about this in terms of the inspiration, in a manner of speaking, as to why you wanted to cast your mother in this.
Yes. Why did I want to cast my mother in this? So my mother was diagnosed in 2012 with Alzheimer's and she had had a long career as an actress, and very passionate and hardworking actress as well. And very abruptly she had to stop. She had to leave the stage. Um, Throughout her disease or sickness, as she was, starting to forget more and more, she would have a longing for the stage. I was working in theater, and also my father was working in theater, and we were talking together about projects, and sometimes she would ask, is there a part for me? And still knowing, of course, that she couldn't remember lines or anything. So we started at one point to talk about, okay, she has a longing for the stage. We should bring her back. And that was kind of so it came from her. It came from her, but we were quite late, in the process. She had had Alzheimer's for 12 years when we finally decided to do this. And we knew at that point that it was now or never. So we just pushed things through in a very intense way. And I'm very, very glad we did because, yeah, she had a great time and we all did.
Yeah, and I don't want to give anything more away than is absolutely necessary about this film, but there are a number of different heart-wrenching and beautiful moments in this film that involve your mother on stage and and how you're navigating that. And in your initial kind, there's a lot of barriers, a lot of hurdles to clear in her even being on the stage. And I just thought it was just a beautiful. Again, I don't want to give anything away. There's a beautiful scene in the film in which you realize you can do this. This can be done in the ways that you would want it to be done. I don't want you to say anything, but I just thought I just want to appreciate just how and so grateful that you captured this part of her story in this. I want to go back and talk about her career. Birita Mohr, who was a renowned actress. Let's talk a little bit about your mom's background in theater.
I think we have to talk about the Faroe Islands as well. First, just to understand where she, became an actress, because the Faroe Islands, as you know, is a very, very small country. It's 50,000 people living in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on 18 tiny, tiny islands. So it's a very, very small, tight-knit community. Uh, And most of the people here are working with fish. So it's a fishing society. Having said that, we have a very rich culture of storytelling, both through song and through telling stories. Theater has always been here, but not in a professional way. So it's that's where my mother comes in. In the 1970s, her, my father, and three other people decide that they want to make the first professional theater group in the Faroe Islands. And that's 1973 or four, shortly before I'm born. And that's where she throws in all her passion. She goes to Iceland to study theater and comes back. And then they create this group called Grima, which means mask, and they just do, 4 plays a year, intensely touring the islands, around the country, and that's basically her life for 30 years working intense. She does a couple of films, which of course go abroad, but not a lot of film industry is even younger in the Faroe Islands. So it's mostly theater she's working with. Adding to that, she's also an activist. So she's also working, she's a fierce feminist and also for the LGBTQ plus community and other minorities. She's struggling for them. So she's a force in Faroese society during the 70s, 80s, and 90s and into the tens as well.
Thank you for that. I also want to talk about your dad,
Yes.
who is a very important part of the story, both on and off stage, and how so much of his reaction and what he matters in terms of the telling of the story. Just a beautiful human being. Let's talk about your dad.
Father, of course, is the caregiver in the film, and he is has been, and he's one of the reasons I also wanted to make this film because I think the way he has been around my mother and his loyalty to her and the love that he's been giving her is really, I get emotional talking about it because it's incredible to watch. So my parents, of course, they were both theater people. They were very passionate people, and I had a very turbulent childhood due to that, of course. And they've been together, and then they separated, and together, and separated, and blah blah blah. That's sort of my childhood, but that's not what we're talking about. What I wanted to say is that when she was diagnosed, he said it to me, he said, Bui, I will now dedicate my life to making your mother happy. And that's what he did. He put all of his own stuff to the side and he basically just made sure that she was safe and happy. And he kept that going and still is doing that. And that was so inspiring. And of course, his knowledge of theater and his knowledge of performance and all these things, he was not abashed to, create space for her as she was becoming more and more strange or, doing strange things. He would, really make sure that he didn't correct her. He would make sure that she just was allowed to, put things in the fridge that weren't supposed to be in the fridge and stuff like that, that he would see if I correct her too much, she gets, unsecure or sad and stuff like that. So he was basically just taking her out, playing music and, reading for her, all the stuff, and that was very, very inspiring. So that I think I wanted to share as well with the world, just the caregiver story of my father. Yeah.
Again, another beautiful part of the film. I do want to let people know that if they're listening to this conversation and they happen to be in Copenhagen, coming up on March 15th, the 17th, or the 18th, this film will be screening. Birita will be screening at CPH Docs, and it's part of the official, official screening. It's part of this really, in my mind, underrated film festival for documentary films. It really has launched so many wonderful films and filmmakers over the years. So glad to see that you're going to be there for this and in person for some interviews or some Q&As after the screenings. There's a lot of good reasons to go to Copenhagen on any day of the week, and this is certainly makes it even more attractive to go and see this film festival and this film. And Another thing about this, by the way, as I mentioned to you before we got started, my mom was diagnosed and passed due to Alzheimer's. And in the film, we see very much the same sort of trajectory, at least in my experience, of having to make impossible decisions. That is
Mhm.
the cruelty of this situation, of this disease, is impossible decisions have to be made. Yeah, and we see that in the film. We see that very, very difficult decisions on the part of your family, which is juxtaposed by the birth of your second son in the film, which is again, this is not something you could have planned, but it provides such a wonderful context and juxtaposition of what you're going through. So, anything you'd like to say about any of that?
I mean, the decision in terms of the decisions you're talking about, it's of course, especially for my father as a caregiver, her, life is in his hands in many ways, and for him to have to make decisions for her is of course very, very difficult, and in many ways it affects him more than it affects her often. I um because my mother was quite, joyous wherever she was or wherever she comes. She's quite joyous. Um, so I think the decision making is, yeah, it's very, very complex because there are so many emotions involved, and this is the first time you're, confronted with this problem, so how do you do it? And then you have society saying this or saying that, and you have the ethical problems, that also are knocking on the door. There was a doctor actually who we spoke to who we were talking to as we were doing this play, and we were talking about ethics, and he, I think, said something which helped us a lot, which was that as a family you're also creating your own ethics. So ethics aren't set in stone because we were getting some pushback from, radio and society and stuff like that. But as a society, as a family, you can also, create your own ethics because you, if anybody, knows what's right, for her. I think that that was a very, yeah, insightful thing actually to get to understand that
Right.
you're allowed to do what makes your mother happy. That was the guiding light for us, was her joy and her happiness. If we had a contract when we started this project, we said if she at any point says no, and this was all the way until the premiere, if she goes on stage and the audience is sitting there and she says no, we'll stop. That was from the beginning, so
There is, and again, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but the way that she's brought on stage at the
mm,
beginning of the play, beginning of the first performance of the play, is beautiful. I love the way that she was introduced to the crowd. I love everything about it. And to watch the way that you were able to stage this in a way, and you were able to make her a part of it, is no small feat. And I'm so glad, of course, the people you were working with in your theater troupe were amazing people to be around as well. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I just want to give a shout out to the cinematographer, Franklin Senfer Henriksen, who that shot that you're talking about. Of course, I was directing a play at the same time as we were doing the documentary, so he was very much in charge of shooting, making up, talking about decisions. He was taking a lot of decisions, and that is one of the most impressive decisions I think that he made, because that is a one take from when I'm standing out in the foyer looking out at the audience, and then I walk all the way around the theater, look for my parents, and they're ready to go on stage, and then they go on stage, and he follows them on stage, and we see reveal the audience. I mean, it's such an impressive one take. It is really incredible, and that was his intuition, and his intuition is really one of the things that has created this film, I must say.
yeah, and again, it serves so many purposes in furthering the story of the play, the presentation of the play. I think in many ways addressing questions that were lingering about the even of the production of the play, and then you see the audience and you see how sort of enthralled they are by it. And the story of King Lear, the Mad King, the whole thing. There's the loss of your ability to reason is the kind of the play is about. It's just all and of course being able to spend time with your family, your beautiful wife, and the relationship, and your son, all of it. I'm so happy to have seen this film, and I'm proud of the way that this film unfolds for you and for your family. So, congratulations on CPH Docs premiere, and I assume we're going to be seeing it somewhere other. Yeah, yeah. Do we have other festivals lined up?
No, we don't actually. We're having I mean, this is the world premiere at CBH Docs, and we're still hoping for a distribution for the film. We're gonna have some screenings in the Faroe Islands in April. But apart from
Okay.
that, we're open for collaborations.
Okay.
If
Well,
people know more about the film, of course, we have a webpage called biritafilm.com, and we're also out on SoMe with Birita Film.
very good. Búi Dam, thank you so much for this amazing film, Burita, and for your work and ongoing heart goes out to your family for all kinds of reasons. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for this.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.